Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Journaling on a Budget starting from scratch. This week we are going to make a gusseted pocket for the back of our book, for the back cover. And so what I have done to start with is, the first thing I did was, because remember we actually cut the cover of our book, and so we had a cut line here, I just went ahead and put some of the shorthand paper on there, wrapped it over the edge to cover that raw edge, and then put it on the inside. So, and I wanted to do that and give it time to dry. So I did that ahead of time, but all I did was I just tore it with my tear ruler here, decided how far I wanted it to come down, and then went ahead and wrapped it to the inside. We'll be covering the inside, so it doesn't matter how far I came down there. Now I am deciding whether I want to put the same on the front as the back. And for right now, I'm not going to do that because I'm not sure what I want to put on the front. So, but I always have the option of doing that later. So, and then the next thing that I've done is I went ahead and used one of the, and this is just a big heavy old dictionary that I use for holding things down, and to keep them flat. So what I did was I took one of the pages out of the flower book and I cut it from the edge of the paper line to the edge of the paper line, and this is going to be my pocket. And so I made that pretty much as, again, I didn't want to cover all the way up to the edge of the book. I wanted to leave that green edge on the book. And then I just made the pocket almost to the outside edge of the book. And so I just cut my paper that size, and what was left over, I just folded it over. That gives us a nice sturdiness to the pocket where you're going to be putting things in and out. So, and then the next thing we're going to want to do before we put this into our book, I also just took a piece of paper, used the tear ruler, and this is going to be the flap on our pocket. So this will go right in here, so that this will open up, and then we'll have this pocket here in the back of our book. So, and again, that is just a piece of paper that is approximately the width of, it's what I had left. So it's a little tiny bit smaller than the edge of this, and that's okay with me. It was really almost the perfect size piece of paper, so I am going to use that. And so I just did that so that it's going to be glued right up to the edge pretty much, and then just fold down over our pocket so anything that we put in there is not going to fall out. So that is what I did ahead of time, just because I figured, like I said, I cut a piece of paper that was about that big. This was that wide, so I just went ahead and tore enough to be underneath my pocket and to have a flap on top of my envelope. You can make it any size that you want to. And then what I want to do is for this one, and we could actually put this in right now while we're working on the pocket itself. What I've done is I have a piece of the fuzzy yarn, and what I've done is I don't like all of those extra fuzzies on there, and so what I did was I just went ahead and I just trimmed those fuzzies off the edge. They don't have to be exactly right up to the edge. I just don't want them so long because they get tangled sometimes. We're going to use this to wrap around our button, and I don't want it to get all tangled up. And so I just kind of trim those off until I get just kind of a piece of string. Alrighty, so that's going to go underneath of our flap. This will be our pocket. This is going to be our flap. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a button on here, and we're going to want to have the string will come underneath of here, and it will come down and wrap around our button. And do we want our button on the flap, or do we want our button on the pocket? Because I'm thinking now I might want to put the button on the flap. And this is the button. Yeah, let's put the button on the flap instead of putting it on the pocket. All right, so we're going to put the button on our flap. So before we glue our flap down, we're going to go ahead and work on getting that button on there. And what I've done is I just cut a little piece of cardboard off a cereal box, put a couple of holes in it because I want to be able to string this through here, but I want it to be strong enough. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on here. To get it approximately in the middle. Oops, I didn't want to glue that side. Because when it opens up, I didn't want to see that, so I'm going to wipe that off. I want to glue the shiny side onto my paper, and I'm going to just give it some, just kind of sand it down a little bit to give something for the glue to grab onto. And put the glue on this side. Okay, and now I'm going to say that, am I going to want my button to sit exactly like that? Yeah, that's fine. All right. So I'm going to just kind of look at this. I want to put it closer to the flap, to the opening of the flap. And then I kind of want to look that I'm about in the middle. And you can measure it if you'd like to. So I'm just going to put that one right on there. And then I'm going to get the extra glue off of there. All right, now I'm going to have to sew our button on. And I want to use the heavier thread, so we don't have a heavy needle. So how are we going to do that? I just took this as a bread tie, and I just flattened it out. I've been saving them. I have quite a few now. And so what I've done, because I don't have any wire in my stash, is I have just gone ahead and I have just peeled this paper part. Some of them have plastic on it, and then you can trim it with your scissors. You can even trim the paper ones with your scissors, just to make it a nice smaller piece of wire that you can use as a wire needle. So you just go ahead and get all of that off of there, and you wind up with just a little piece of wire. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend my wire in half, and then I'm going to take my little piece of thread, or whatever we call this, yarn. Whoops. I'm going to put it in here between these two pieces. I really am. There we go. Alrighty, and I'm just going to put that in there like that. Give it a pinch to make it smaller there and to kind of hold on to your yarn. And then I'm just going to go here and I'm going to poke a hole. And actually I could just use, just use the pencil here to poke a hole in each side. And you want to make sure you poke both holes before you sew your button on. And now we're just going to go through that hole and pick up our button. And then it also depends on what do you want to do with your string. I actually am going to do this again, but I'm going to go down through the button. And then down through the hole, because I want to tie this into a bow on the top of the button. So I'm going to go down there. We'll leave enough to try and tie a bow. And you can do it however you want to, as far as this is a 4-hole button, so I can either just go straight across and do the second hole, And maybe I'll do that. Or I can go around and go through. Okay, so I've come up here across from this one. Now I can go back down through here and then just go over there to where that other hole is. Or I can just go ahead and tie my bow this way, which is what I'm going to do. Now don't glue your button down because you want to be able to wrap around this button when you're done. And let me see, do I want to do something with those other two holes? No. But you can. We're going to tie this into a knot first before we make our little bow. And then we're going to tie a little bow. And the bow that we make, we're going to want to make it about the size of our button because we're going to wrap another piece of string around here, so we don't want our bow to get in the way. Oh, I pulled that one all the way through. So we're just going to do like that, and then we're going to bring our little parts of our bow to bring them just to the edge of our button. And so now we have this cute little bow on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little dot of glue right in the center. You could have made a double bow, you know, and tied it a second time. But if you do that, then it's hard to make it small. Now I could have tied this on the back side, and the front would have just been, you know, like some threads going through there, and there wouldn't have been a bow that would be in your way. I tied that one more time, so it tied on top of that glue. Just going to kind of pull my little bows out there to make sure I like the way that they look. And then I'm going to cut off the extra that sticks past the button because I don't want it to stick past the button. Just kind of put that up there. And so now we have our little button like this that we're going to wrap our string around from the pocket. So while we're working on the pocket, we can glue this in our book. And I'm going to glue the back side here. Spread it out, kind of smooth it a little bit, and get to the edges. Mostly the top edge, you really want to get good. The bottom edge is going to be under our pocket. So get those edges on the top and each side all the way out to the edge so that they stay down. And then I'm just going to line this up on here, right up towards the top. Maybe I'll leave like 1/8 of an inch or so. Go line it up at the top. And then I want to smooth this out nicely. I'm going to get the glue off my hand first really quickly. And then kind of smooth this out. Really want it smoothed here because our pocket is going to start down here, so we will have a bit of this flap sticking, you know, you'll see it. So I definitely don't want that to be wrinkled. And there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my heavy book on this while we're making our pocket, I'll just set that heavy book right on here just to make sure that that makes really good contact. Oops. And there we go. Now for our pocket, again, I've cut it to the size that I want it. Folded over what was left so that this is 2 thicknesses right here so that it's nice and sturdy. And then what we're going to do is we want this to be a gusseted pocket so it opens up a little bit. To make a gusset, all you need is a piece of paper that is the width of your pocket, top to bottom. And then you're just going to concertina fold it to make the gusset. So, and you can decide what size you want your gussets to be. I do them, probably 3/4 of an inch maybe, just a little over a half. And I don't do them both the same size. I've already got one done. Oh, they are pretty close to the same size. And so what you're going to do is you're going to just fold it and then fold it back the other way, getting it as close as you can on lining up those edges. And then we're going to fold it again. And again, just lining up those edges as best as you can. They don't have to be perfect. And if you want to put a few more gussets in to make it open even further, you can. But I usually do it like this. And then I'm just going to cut it off right here along the edge. Now remembering that this is a fold right here, so I don't want to cut that fold. And because this paper has writing on it, I know since I have to cut here, I'm just going to cut right across the bottom of that line of writing. Just like that. So when you're done, you've got an M or a W. Excuse me. And now we're going to put this on our pocket. You can glue it down so that you have this flat part here with the fold inside. And usually when I do that, when I make my valley here to the inside, oops, wrong way. Normally when I do that, it's because I want to take another piece of paper and put it across like this to those 2 M's so that when you were to open your gusset, this part is stuck to the front. I'll just kind of show you. You're going to glue this flap to your pocket, and then you'd have this paper in the middle, and so that would be like a divider. And then this flap here is going to be glued to the back, so you'd have like an extra pocket. So you can glue it with the fold, with your valley in, or you can glue it with the valley out. And so when you do that and you open it up, it just kind of gives you that space there in the opening of your pocket, if that makes any sense. So what I'm going to do is the first thing that you do is take your gusset and glue it at the bottom. So you're going to glue that together so that when your envelope opens up, it opens just like that, but stays closed at the bottom. And like I said, you can glue it either way that you want to. And so you've got, it looks like that. And I'm going to actually glue it on this way, so this will be my gusset. No, I think I am going to still, even though I'm not going to put a divider, I'll do it this way because it gives you a little bit more kind of opening, or like 2 little spots instead of one little spot, because this is going to be glued completely flat on your page and on your book. So we'll do it like that, valley to the inside. And normally you would want these to dry before you glue them on. And then the other thing that we're going to do, because we don't want to put something in our pocket and have it fall out the bottom, you can do one of two things. You can fold your paper over and fold it over, and then your pocket's going to be like this. And that will catch because you're going to glue this to the inside of your book. But because I wanted this part of the picture, I am just going to take a piece of paper. Is that the right width? Pretty much so. And this is going to be on the inside, so it doesn't matter what type of paper it is. There we go. And it doesn't have to be super large, so I'm going to just, so that I don't waste all of it, I'm going to just cut that there. And I want this to be a straight edge just because I do. Okay, so this is going to be the bottom of our pocket. That's what we're doing here, so that things don't fall out. It's not even, I didn't even do it straight, but that's okay, because nobody's going to see it. So I'm going to glue part of this onto my pocket itself, lining it up at the bottom. Like that. And then I'm going to glue one side of our gusset to the pocket. Lining it up at the edge and the bottom. If you wind up making your gusset a little too tall, you can always cut it off in the end. And then we'll do the other one. Whoops, just like that. Let's leave that like that. Line it up at our fold line down here. Line it up at the edge over there. So now there we have our gusset. And what we're going to do now is we're going to glue just this bottom flap onto just where the gusset is right there. And on this side also. Just like that. And so now when we glue this to our back cover, we'll be gluing it here, here, and here, and that will all stick to our book, and our gusset will open up like that. And you want to make sure that you don't glue your gusset together when you're gluing it onto that front of your pocket. And this one is sticking up just a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. About this side, a little bit here too. And so now here is our gusset, and that's what it looks like. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to put this in my book, put a plastic bag on each side so it doesn't stick to the pages. I'm going to stick it inside my heavy book, and I'm going to let it sit a little bit before I glue it into our journal. So I will be back in just a few. Okay, I am back, and I have let this sit for a while. I put some plastic bag on each side before I put it in my heavy book, and I did put a little bit of plastic between each of the gussets so that they wouldn't get glued down. And then when I use a plastic bag, because sometimes your glue kind of wants to stick to a plastic bag, every so often I go in and I just kind of move it around so that it doesn't get glued to the plastic. I really didn't have any extra glue on here, so it didn't stick to the plastic, but you just want to make sure that it doesn't. So here is our gusseted pocket, and here is our cover with our flap on it. And now we do have to put a string underneath our cover that's going to wrap up and around our buttons, so we want it to be right about in that area. So I am going to glue this right here. Now remembering that when we glue it down, we have just a little bit of paper here because we don't want it glued all the way up here or it will stick. So I'm just going to glue enough so that it will be underneath this part of the pocket. So I'm going to glue that down right there and just kind of make sure it's in line with my button. I'm just going to kind of put some glue right here. Get that piece off of there. So in line with my button. If the glue will ever, there we go. Just take our fiber and stick it on there. And then now we're also going to have glue on our pocket, and so that will also hold it down. So now we're just going to put glue on both sides of our gusset and our bottom flap, or whatever you want to call that, to hold our papers in. I'm going to hold this up off of that one because I don't want to glue to that gusset. Making sure that I get the outside edge as well, but you also want to get up to the inside edge here, because you don't want, when you're sliding something in, you don't want it to catch this part of the pocket. And again, when you set this to dry under a heavy book, you can go in every so often and make sure that, you know, stick your fingers in there, make sure that nothing's gluing itself together. Get the glue off of my hand. Then I'm just going to open this up. Line up my pocket where I want it to be. Make sure that your fold works before you let that dry and that it's not interfering, and then press that down. And so now this is what our pocket's going to look like, so that we can stick some things in there. I really like the gusseted pockets, and that's a little wrinkled down in there, so I'm going to go in and give that a good press on top of that string to make sure that it catches that string in there really well, because we don't want that falling off. And so there's our pocket. That looks better. And then we've got our flap here and our string that will just come up here and wrap around our button and hang back down. So, and we have a little bit too much string there, so I am going to just go ahead and cut that off right about there. Might want to put a bead or something on that. And I know we didn't buy any beads, but we can make our own beads to put on there. And so there we go. And I'm going to open this up a little bit. I'm going to give it a chance to dry just a little bit, and then I will put some plastic in here. A lot of times when I'm doing something like this, I use just clear acetate from packaging. Whenever you get any packaging that has some hard plastic on it, you can save that. And I'll take like a couple pieces of this and maybe cut one. I'll show you how I do it. Cut one that's about this big. And will that fit inside of our pocket? Looks like it will. I'm just going to slide this down. I'm going to slide it into the back part. Of our pocket. And it's a little bit too big. I don't want it too big. I'm just going to trim a little bit off this end. And I'm sliding it down in there so that it goes over top of that flap that we just glued down on the bottom also, just to keep any of that from sticking together. Now, also sometimes I'll take an extra little piece like this and then just put that right in here or here if I think that I got some glue over the edge or something like that. We glued it on there and at the bottom, so none of this should have any glue on it, so we should be just okay with that. And then just go ahead and put a book on that and let it sit until it gets nice and dry. We did glue shiny paper, so we really want to let it get dry. But that's what our pocket looks like, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. And now you can see the types of things that we can do with the buttons that we made. And I do like to always have a pocket in the back of my books sometimes, not always, but if I know that I'm going to have a little extra room. And then our pages are going to fit in there like that. And I did choose a page that I thought would look nice with this back page here. And that's why I didn't want to cut off the edge of this, because I didn't want to come over this far and just have a little blue. I wanted that blue up there to go with my the back page of this signature. And that's why we put that little piece on the inside instead of just folding this over to give us a bottom to our pocket. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.